So after you've installed the pixel, and this is kind of a follow-up to the original video that I created, it's important to know what we can do with the pixel. There's a couple of things. We can look at our diagnostics or our metrics page to see how often the pixel is firing. But keep in mind that the pixel, Facebook pixel, is not meant to be something like Google Analytics. Advertisers shouldn't really use the pixel to see how many people are coming to their page, because as we'll see in a moment, the metrics that you can see are really only for a couple of weeks. The metrics dashboard that's available there is really just so people can see that yes, my pixel is firing, standard events are firing, but it's not an analytics piece, and they should really use something like Google Analytics for that sort of thing. So that's one thing you can do with the pixel. You can kind of see what kind of traffic that you're getting, basically. But more importantly, you want to do one of two things with that pixel. And it's really important that advertisers understand it's not just important to place the pixel and then place standard events on the pixel, but you start optimizing and using the pixel. If you place the pixel on every single page of your website, but you never do one of two things, which is create audiences or create conversion campaigns that are based around standard events, you're not really getting any value. And that's one thing that we want to talk about with advertisers when we're having conversations with them. So I just want to talk about those two things: creating audiences using the pixel, and then secondly, in our conversion campaigns, getting the most use out of the pixels that we've placed. Now, just as a refresher, again, it's important to note that pixels can have standard events, and that's what view content is, and there are 9 standard events. And those standard events can be further defined by parameters, and those are set by the advertiser. So in this case, our standard event view content, hey, this is a catalog page, this is a content page. Nobody's added it to cart, but we want to make sure that we recognize this as an important page. Somebody has drilled down into this product. We can further say what type of product it is, and then with content IDs, we can actually say, and it's this product. It's this one unique product of many. And that's really important for the purposes of retargeting. So on a page, we have every single page of your website should have the pixel base code. It will include that pixel base code, the standard event page view. And then we can add usually just one further standard event, in this case view content. It would be very rare indeed in which you would see more than 2 standard events placed. There's probably a use for that and a reason for that. I've done it on a few of my own pages, but it's rare because somebody saw the page and this is the type of page it is, and further, this is exactly what is on that page. Okay, so now let's go one step further. And let's talk about creating audiences based on standard events. And even then further, we can actually include parameters. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom audience. And I'm going to create a custom audience using website traffic. Now, I could just say, show me all visitors that have come to my page in the last 30 days. But I want to go a little bit further than that, and I want to use my standard events. You can see that I can say, track all the people, let's say, in the last 60 days that have visited specific pages. And I can just go in here, and then I can add a URL. But what I want to do, because I have standard events placed, I want to go further than just dropping a URL in there, because as I mentioned earlier this week, what if we change the structure of our website? If we do, all those URL rules break. And that's why standard events are so crucial and so important and so cool. So what I want to do is I want to say, instead, I want to see the number of people that have come to a view content page. Now that could include hundreds and hundreds of catalog pages, right? So we want to go further than that, and we want to refine it by, you guessed it, URL parameter. So I'm going to click on URL or parameter. I'm going to change URL to a parameter that I have in place. So remember what we saw before, going back to our product page here. We have our view content standard event and a content ID of Shopify, blah, 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 blah. So by capturing this, I would go copy, and I would come back here, and I would say content ID, and then I would go paste. And what this would be, essentially, is show me all the people who went to a view content page, but actually went to a view content page that's defined by this particular product. What we're saying here is show me all the people that have looked at the Stitch Stripe duvet cover set in the last 60 days. By including that parameter, we're actually be able to segment down to a single product. And then I can add additional product IDs. And each time I do that, I could add another product. It takes a little bit more time to place standard events and then those parameters, though to a developer it's actually a pretty simple thing they can do with code, with script. But if you have a small enough catalog, or you have a limited number of pages, even somebody with a basic understanding of how code works would be able to do this. It does take a little bit of time, but as you can see, you could in a very simple way drill down, micro-target very specific people who are looking at very specific things on your website. Now let's step back just a little bit. And what we would want to do with this audience is make sure that we were excluding people that had already made purchases from us in the last 60 days. So by clicking exclude, I can use the same methodology to exclude people who have performed a specific action. In this case, I would choose, assuming I have this, purchase. And then I would just choose purchase in the last 60 days. Right? Now this view content could be changed to add to cart. So I could say, show me the number of people, or create an audience of people in the last 60 days who have added to cart, and then, as you might guess, we could add that single parameter to define it by a particular product. So it's very easy to create audiences of people that have performed particular actions at a kind of higher level. Everybody that has added to cart in the last 60 days but haven't purchased. Or we can actually micro-target down to a single product. Number of people who have added this particular product but did not purchase. And then I can target them with a very specific ad tailored to that product. And that is the power of custom audiences. I would give it a name, we would call this duvet, and I would create the audience. So, Pixel has standard, is on every page of our website. Each important page, like a product page, like an add to cart page, like a purchase page, is going to have a standard event that is defining it. And again, we can go even further by including parameters, and it takes a little bit longer, but as you can see, there's a really important reason to do that. After I gave it a name, I would create the audience. And as you all know, on top of that, let's go ahead and hit back and cancel. I could further select it and create a lookalike audience based on whatever I wanted it to be. People who have added to cart, people who have purchased, etc., etc. I could even do something like create an audience of people that have purchased in the last 180 days who, if I've included value of products, who have spent essentially over $500, if that's the price of that particular purchased item, and then create a lookalike audience of people who are that could be typical high spenders. Okay, so very easy to create these custom audiences and lookalike audience based on actions that people are taking. One thing that you want to do when you're looking at somebody's page or account rather for the first time is you're going to go into audiences and you're going to scan down through here for custom audiences and lookalike audiences. And you kind of want to take a look to see what kind of custom audiences they are. We can see that this is website traffic. This is lookalike audience. I can have a video audiences here. All of that is going to be useful to you. If you don't see video, for example, on custom audiences, but you see on somebody's website, they have a lot of really cool video, that's an opportunity for you to have a conversation with them. So that's something that you can look for and use as you're trying to figure out what you should talk to potential advertisers about. All right, now let's go back really quickly to the pixel and pixel fires. As you can see, this is a dashboard. All I can really see is traffic that's happened today, yesterday, the last 7 days, or the last 14 days. That doesn't go back very far. Google Analytics can trace back your data, behavior on your website for years, and that's going to be much more useful. Sometimes advertisers will see this as a useful tool for them to sort of compare what's going on with Google, and it doesn't really make sense to use the Facebook pixel as a comparison. In fact, what the Facebook pixel measures and what Google Analytics measures are really two different things, and that's also important. The data is never going to stack up. It's never going to match with Google Analytics because they're effectively trying to do two different things, and those tools aren't meant to match. Okay, so what can we learn from just coming to this page? So you're talking to an advertiser or you're researching them. You go to see if they're using audiences. Are they using a video custom audiences? Are they using custom audience based on website traffic? You click on pixels, and that would be right up here after looking at audiences. And then what I would do is I would scan down and I would see if they're using standard events. Remember, if somebody has placed the pixel on their website, and you'll know if they have, it'll say create your pixel if they haven't done it yet. That's important. But we also want to see if they place standard events. If they have a ton of pages on their website and they're not using standard event, that might be an opportunity for you to have a conversation with them about the importance of those standard events. What we can see is a typical funnel. That's also useful. So we can see page views. And again, these are all of the pages on your website are going to have the page view standard event. In the last 7 days, 100 people have come to pages for which my pixel is placed on a website. View content, it's 103. So going down the funnel. Add to cart, whatever I've defined that to be, is 4, and on and on and on. As you can see, all the different types of standard events under that are going to be, this is a very sharp funnel, but it is a funnel nevertheless. So you're kind of looking for that. If you saw page view at 111 and add to cart at, I don't know, 110, that would suggest that something might be off with how their pixels are placed. But the most important thing that we're really kind of looking for here is, are they using standard events if they have the pixel in place? Again, that becomes an opportunity for you to have a conversation. What can I talk to them about when I mention standard events? Everything that we just discussed in terms of creating audiences. Now, the last thing that I want to point out is we can use the pixel to create custom audiences, highly targeted audiences, which is what you want to do as you're driving people from your brand awareness campaigns down and down and down the funnel. Well, we can also use our pixel in our conversion campaigns to track how effective our Facebook ads actually are. So I'm going to click on Create Ad, and I'm going to start over. I'm going to click My Conversions, and then I'll scroll down, and it'll say Name Your Campaign. I'm not going to create a split test. I'm just going to create a conversion campaign. We'll call it Conversion. And the first thing it's going to say to me is choose your conversion event. Now, this is only going to be an option for me if I have placed, you guessed it, standard events, right? I need more than just to place my pixel on every page. So what I'm essentially saying here is, when I go here, going to make this challenging for me, fine. Okay, so I'm going to choose purchase if I can find it. Oh, there we go. All right, and underneath that it says, we'll now optimize delivery of your ads to get the most of these conversions at the lowest cost. So what Facebook is going to do, because I've placed the purchase standard event on my page, it's going to show my ad to people who have demonstrated a high percentage of purchases, or that's a terrible way of saying that, but people who are likely to make purchases based on the audience that you're targeting. So if I'm targeting people who like Bengal cats and in a particular audience, custom audience that I've created, it's then going to, because I've added the standard event, it's going to say, okay, let's look at this audience and let's find the people who have a strong likelihood and who are good candidates for making purchases. Now, if this isn't really doing anything for you, what I would suggest is moving a little bit higher up the funnel. Add to cart, for example. So now Facebook is going to optimize delivery of your ads to get the most of these conversions at the lowest cost. And obviously, in that audience, there's going to be more people who have added to cart than have purchased. But basically what this means is Facebook is going to try and get show your ad to people it knows that are taking actions in the audience that you have chosen, and those actions are defined by you. And then we would add our custom audience, our lookalike audience. Maybe I'm going to add a lookalike audience of 20,000, or how many do I have? About 1 million or so. And now it's gonna try and optimize my ad to go to people who have a high likelihood of adding things to their cart, who are taking actions, right? The most important thing to note about this is this doesn't happen. I don't even get this option unless I've placed these standard events on my website. Can't optimize for them unless I have them. And we know that because when I scroll down, or try to scroll down, you'll see how these standard events, which are standard, are not placed. They're red. That means I can't use them yet. So you have to place the standard event. So if you're talking to somebody, they have the pixel placed, they're not using standard event, here's a great opportunity. A custom conversion, just to sort of like go a little bit further, is if people don't have those standard events, they can create a standard event like activity or action based on URL keywords, but that's not really going to be too helpful to us if our website changes, for example. So I'm not a huge fan of custom conversions. They work in a pinch, but mainly they work in a pinch if you don't already have standard events placed. Okay, so that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about. The key thing to keep in mind is that a pixel is great. Get your pixel on every page of your website, awesome. Include standard events, awesome. But if you're not going beyond that, and if you, as marketing experts, aren't looking to see if people are using standard events, if they're using pixels, if they've created a pixel, if they're using audiences and web custom audiences, they're not really going to be getting anything out of the pixel unless they are doing one of those two things, creating conversion campaigns or creating audiences based on that pixel behavior. A final thing that standard events and the pixel will do is it's going to track the types of actions that are taking place every time a pixel is fired on a site that's been defined. So for example, if I have a standard event of add to cart on my website, I've taken the time to define that page as an add to cart page. When I go into my metrics, I'm going to be able to see how many pixels were fired on a particular ad that resulted in an add to cart or a purchase. So for a particular ad, I'm going to be able to track to see how effective it is. We don't get to do any of that fun stuff unless we have placed the standard events, and importantly, if we place the parameters, because they let us drill down even more. Okay, so that is sort of the follow-up to my original video.